Hey YouTube world, what's going on? Mark here from TST Industries, back in the garage. And today, Bart will be guiding you through the installation process of our integrated taillight for the all-new ZX4RR. Now, as you see behind me, we do have the RR model. This is the 2023 offering by Kawasaki. However, our neighbors up north in Canada did receive the base 4R model, and this installation process will cover those bikes as well. So if you're looking to upgrade the rear end of your bike, you want to slim down a little bit of weight, increase visibility, and add in some programmable features like a strobe brake alert or sequential signals, while still retaining plug-and-play functionality, our TST Integrated Tail Light is just the solution for you. Available in clear or smoked with built-in OEM connectors, signals integrated into the unit, and a toggleable button on the back of the unit which allows you to sort through 9 possible function combinations. Our integrated taillight is the perfect option for those of you wanting to upgrade the rear of your bike. Now, this installation process is pretty straightforward. However, I should mention, if your OEM taillight presents any gaps around the taillight and the fairings, those gaps will be present with our taillight. We've seen this over the course of the year with various Kawasaki models, and because we reverse engineer the OEM lights to design ours, any fitment issues you have present on your bike with the OEM equipment will also be present with our lights. So please keep that in mind as you follow along. One last thing to note, if you are upgrading to LED turn signals, you will want to check out and possibly purchase our LED flasher relay. If you're upgrading to LED signals and don't upgrade your flasher relay, you can see an instance where you experience a hyper flash, where your signals flash quickly, or they may not flash at all, or they will stay on all the time. So please keep that in mind, but without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in.
We're going to begin this process by removing the passenger seat. This is done with the key. The next step will be to remove the driver's seat. This is done via the pull cable in this area here. Next, it'll be necessary to remove these push fasteners, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and subsequently remove the black center shroud. To remove these fasteners, we push in the centers that unlocks them, and then we just pull them up. I like to reset them to unlocked and popped configuration. That makes them ready for reinsertion later. Now we'll need to grab this, pop it up, and then forward. Sliding it forward clears these locking mechanisms from under this fairing. And now we have these screws exposed. They will require a 5mm Allen. Let's get rid of those now. I'm going to grab a 4mm Allen and access the screw under here that fastens this fairing piece into the frame. I will simply pull away from the bike. Here, there's a friction fastener in this location that goes into a grommet on the tank. Once that pops out, we have access to this screw. I'm able to get my 4mm Allen in here to take this screw out. The screw does have a shoulder washer on it, so we need to make sure that we retain that washer. This is what it looks like, screw with the shoulder washer. There is another screw of this kind on this side. We will follow the same procedure as we pull away here and get my Allen underneath. So now these fairings on the side of the tail are essentially ready to come out. There are 2 friction fasteners that go into grommets here. If you pull away perpendicular to the center plane of the bike, they will clear out. On the left side, we have the seat latch cable that needs to be taken off like so. Rotate the cable around forward and take it out. On the right side of the bike, we just pull away towards outboard and the fairing just clears out. Now I will grab a Phillips screwdriver and I will remove these two fasteners here, followed by these two fasteners here. Now we have two more fasteners in these locations here. They are 8mm hex head. So I'm going to grab a socket. Repeat that on the other side of the bike. So technically, the next step I'm going to describe is optional in that we could potentially deform the undertail plastic enough to remove the tail light from within it, but I'm always afraid to deflect the plastic too far, yield it, and cause it to have white yield marks. So what we're gonna do is remove our fender eliminator. Now, if you already have a fender eliminator, that is the part that's gonna have to come off the bike. If you still have the OEM fender, then at this point you would disconnect the OEM lighting connections on the fender, so left signal, right signal, and license plate light. Remove these 4 fasteners using a 5mm Allen. That comes down, and that gets you ready for the next step. In our case, we will be using a Phillips head screwdriver to remove the screws that secure our fender eliminator on. Seeing now with the fender or fender eliminator taken off, this entire undertail is nice and flexible and gives us enough access here to work on the taillight. 2 additional fasteners have to come out. They are Phillips head. These are the main fasteners that secure the taillight to the undertail. And now this taillight is pretty much ready to yank out. We will do one more thing before we go to that step. It needs to be disconnected. So, going to grasp the connecting wire from the taillight to its plug here. I'm using a flathead screwdriver to depress the locking mechanism on the plug. It's just problematic for my fat hands to get in there. I use a screwdriver and press this guy down. It has a little ratcheting feature that locks it in place. Pressing it down unlocks it and makes it removable. Now, back here, we still have this tab with a rubber cap that goes into the taillight that needs to be taken out. Please note the configuration that it goes in. We'll replace it just like that. At this point, it'll be necessary to clear these grommets and the taillight off of the inner boss that they sit on. So I'm gonna push the taillight from the bottom towards the top and work it back and forth until those clear. Then we push the taillight forward to clear the obstruction in this area. Once that interference is cleared, this just comes out nice and easy. We are going to scavenge these grommets for reuse on the TST Industries taillight. This installation, we've chosen the smoked version of the taillight. It does deliver ample brightness, but it does have a nicer muted look that goes with the colors of the bike and completes the theme very nicely. So we are going to stuff these guys back in here. My method for doing so is basically just jam them in there and then rotate them around. Once they rotate freely, you know that you've cleared all the obstructions. Once the grommets are seated, the remainder of this job becomes the reverse order of disassembly. One thing I want to note here before we put this in, this is where your programming button is. Each press of this button toggles you through to the next program for the light patterns. This remains accessible from this compartment here, so you can reprogram your taillight at any given point. All right, so we will move this forward, drop it down, and then get it under the subtray undertail, back up. And now it's just a matter of getting the grommets around the bosses. All right, that's looking good. Let's get this bracket back in place. I kept it on the rear tire in the configuration that it fits into the tail light in. That makes it nice and easy. And get this in place. Make sure it's bottomed out, and then grab the appropriate screws that are used to put it back in place. Not really going to tighten everything just yet. I like to leave some adjustability in all of this. The OEM taillight fits with slight gaps into the whole undertail. Our taillight is the same exact geometry, outer geometry of capsule as the OEM taillight, so it fits the same. However, you can just tighten this out of sequence and it gets tweaked just a little bit from the torque applied to the screws, and then you end up with uneven gaps and you might be unhappy with that. So my method is to leave it just a little bit loose, have all the connections ready to tighten, but with a little bit of slop, and then we do a final tighten at the end. We make everything look good. Going to do those 8mm hex head screws on the side of the undertail here. I start threads by hand, and then I follow up with the tool here. This is so far forward that it will not affect the gaps in the rear. So I am going to cinch this up all the way to the bottom now. All right, next I will replace our fender eliminator on the bike. If you are replacing your OEM fender or aftermarket fender eliminator that did not come from TST Industries, obviously this step will look a little bit different. I would encourage you to just look back to your instructions for whatever the part is that is on your bike. These guys a little bit loose because that's going to be part of my final adjustment here. Still need to get these taillight main boss screws in there. These just pressurize around the rubber grommets, and that doesn't make a hard connection with the taillight. So these can be bottomed out right away. They're inconsequent to our adjustment method. All right. Let's get us plugged in here. So the main taillight connector, you saw me unplug it from this location here. So we will take the TST Industries taillight connector, get it in there, push it in until the lock engages. Now, you see 4 wires and 4 connectors here. That may seem a little weird. These taillights serve several generations of these bikes. Obviously on the ZX4R, that doesn't concern us very much, but some of the other bikes have multiple generations where some generations use this type of connector for signaling and some use this. We just decided to make these lights universal. So for the purpose of this installation, we will disregard these guys, just leave them hanging there, and use these larger sealed connectors. The receiving connectors are in this boot here. So you'll just have to find the appropriate combination of connector to connector. I'm gonna power up the bike and I'm gonna turn on the zoom right so that I can show you guys better. All right, I got lucky. The right signal engages the right signal LEDs on the taillight. If I got it backwards, I would have to unplug these and reverse them. That's just a procedure for finding out which one's which. And we just tuck the wiring away, power down the bike. Actually, we should probably do both. Okay, we have left, we have right. We're good to go here. Brake is working. I mentioned before, these taillights are programmable. What you're seeing here is the brake alert, strobe, then solid, and then the signaling currently on the sequential version. Toggling through all the programs with that button will give you different modes. You just settle on the one that you like best. Now, I'm gonna look at these gaps here. This actually looks all good to me. Maybe shift it a little bit, so I'm gonna just adjust the plastic to sit where I want it to sit, and then I'm gonna slowly, lightly tighten down on everything in sequence. Just pushing and pulling a little bit till it's where I like it. And then cinch it down. Give it a final glance. That looks really good. Now tighten down on the fender eliminator or fender. All right, now let's start getting the fairing components back on. This goes on the bike in the reverse order of disassembly, but since this is kind of tricky, we're going to show it in detail here. Now, we need to move this out of the way first, get this under, find our friction fastener locations here and here, line those up, and before we push in, make sure that this tab is on top, and then pop it in place. That's looking good. Going to get this side fairings fasteners in right away. Once the forward fastener here is tightened up, we can push this back into the receiving grommet. Make sure that it snaps in place everywhere and is captive. And grab the screw that came out of here. Similar steps here. Pry away on this, get it under there, line it up. Now on this particular side, this tab will want to go under this cable catch. What you need to do is make sure that it goes over. And then at that point, you line up those friction fasteners and everything should just pop together nice and easy, making sure everything engaged top and bottom. And then we replace the fastener up front. Now I'm going to grab the center shroud, place it in this location. Need to make sure that these line up with these grommets at some point. First, we will need to make sure that this window interference catches this tab, and then these tabs slide into their appropriate place on the tail. That's how all of this remains captive after the build is done. So once you get it in place, it kind of gives you a little snap, and then it's ready here. Up here, you just press it down. And at this point, we replace our push fasteners and lock them in place. Seats go back on.
And just like that, this installation is complete, and Bart has taken you through the entire process of installing our integrated taillight onto the rear of this beautiful 2023 Kawasaki ZX4RR. Now, as shown and mentioned, it is completely plug and play, it is fully programmable, and it is available in a clear or smoke lens. However, there is one thing we would like to mention, as I mentioned briefly in the intro of this video. When installing LED signals on this bike, you will want to install our LED flasher relay Gen 2. The reason for that is the signals will hyper flash without a relay. As you can see here, the signals are flashing at the correct rate, but without a relay, they will flash quickly. And if you add on LEDs on the front as well, they may stay on constantly, they may not turn on at all, or they may flash even quicker. So please be sure to keep that in mind. We do mention that on the product page, just something that we like to make our customers aware of. But if you found this video helpful, if you enjoyed it, be sure to give us a thumbs up. You can visit our website, tstindustries.com, to view this exact product and any other product we may have for the ZX4RR or any other bike sitting in your garage. The link to this taillight, however, can be found in the description below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn the notification bell on to stay up to date with all the new and exciting videos we've got planned for this bike and a full suite of others. And lastly, if you're still here, you might as well stop by our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all username TST Industries, to keep up with the shenanigans that we've got going on here in the TST garage. But for now, this has been Mark and Bart from TST, and we will catch you next time.